If you're just joining us, you are telling me what your debt service is. Everybody in? Hear from everybody? Welcome. So your debt service is your principal and your interest. Your debt service is not everything included in your monthly mortgage payment, but it is your principal and your interest, because your debt service is what you owe the bank. So they do take a 1/12 of your taxes. They do take a 1/12 of your insurance, but taxes and insurance don't go to the bank, right? Taxes go to the county, insurance goes to Allstate or State Farm or Geico or however your homeowner's insurance through. So again, when we're talking about our debt service, we're talking about our principal and interest only. And last night we looked at our debt service through the eyes of amortization. And we figured month to month how we were going to amortize, how we were going to break down that debt service. So the bank tells you what your monthly payment is, what your monthly debt service is, and that's fixed for the life of the loan. That's a commitment that they make, that that'll be your monthly payment, be your debt service for the life of the loan. And what changes each month is how much is applied to interest and how much is applied to principal. So that takes us back one more time to our picture on page 374. And that picture, it does a good job of showing us we're making a level payment. We're paying the same thing every single month, but what's changing is how much we're applying to principal and how much we're applying to interest, which is your debt service. What questions do I have about anything we talked about last night? This is where we ended. So you guys, we talked about loan to value ratio. What questions do we have so far? Okay. So let's put our mortgage lender hat back on. All right, we got to think through the eyes of the lender as we get through units 14 and 15. And continuing on 14, we're on page 375. And continuing on, we're talking about something called usury laws. And there's federal and then there's state specific usury laws. Usury, that word's not coming out tonight. You guys see it on your screen, right? Okay. And basically what these laws do, remember we said last night that, all lenders are different, and that includes the fees and the charges and the interest rates that they set and the loan products that they provide, the things that they offer. But there is something out there that kind of puts a ceiling on the lenders. So they say you're free to charge up to anything up to X amount, or you're free to have your interest rate up to X amount. And that's what these usury laws do. Did I do it right? If I wasn't thinking about it, I can do it. I can say it. So that's what these laws do, is they put a ceiling on what the lenders can do. And if a lender's caught charging more than what these laws provide, then obviously the lender could face some fines themselves, could face some penalties. Now let's talk about something called discount points. Discount points are just prepaid interest. Y'all please write that down really big. Discount points are prepaid interest. That's all discount points are. This is one of these things that you guys, former students, have tend to like to make this a lot harder than what it really is. All a discount point is prepaid interest. So write that down real big, highlight that. And if a borrower is buying discount points at closing, then they're bringing extra money to closing. They're prepaying on some of the interest that they already owe the bank. It's prepaid interest. Remember, interest is spread out over a 30-year period. So discount points allow a buyer to bring more money to closing and to prepay some of their interest. Why in the world would a buyer bring more money to closing to prepay interest? They still owe the same amount. It does not change how much interest they owe. They're just bringing some to closing. And the reason why a buyer would do that is to get a lower interest rate. They're buying down their interest rate. The bank's still getting the same money. Y'all don't worry about the lender. They will get their money. They are getting the same money, but they're just, instead of having an interest rate of X amount, we'll let you bring some discount points and you're going to buy down your interest rate. And that lower interest rate will be your interest rate for the life of the loan. Now, don't worry, the lender gets something out of it too. And what the lender gets out of discount points or prepaid interest is it increases their yield. For our purposes, all we need to understand about a yield is it's the lender's return. It's the return on their profit. The higher the yield makes for a more sellable loan. So your lender originates their loan. And then, as we're going to learn in just a minute when we get to Unit 15, the lender may sell your loan to another lender. They may sell it to another party. And the product they need to sell to the other lender needs to be a sellable product. The higher the yield, the more sellable. So the lender may ask the buyer to purchase discount points to have a higher yield. The buyer may look at the lender and say, I want a lower interest rate. Is there anything I can do about that? And the answer to both of those questions are discount points. The buyer can prepay interest. There are two pieces of math with discount points that we need to talk about. So we're going to talk about two different pieces of math with discount points. And the first piece of math is the one that I guarantee that you will see. As a matter of fact, we'll see it again at settlement. I'm sorry, at Unit 21 when we go to settlement. So I promise you'll see this again. I promise you'll see it on your test. And the first piece of math is how much in prepaid interest is the buyer going to have to bring to closing? And discount points equate to a percentage. One discount point is equal to 1% of the loan. What's the word of mean in a word problem? The word of, yeah, multiply. So if the buyer's buying one discount point, how much money do they need to bring to closing? They're bringing 1% of the loan. If they're buying two discount points, they're buying 2% of the loan. 3 discount points is equal to 3% of the loan. Kind of see how this works? The number of discount points equals the percentage of the loan. And I need you guys, because again, these are places where your tests like to trick you. I hate to say they trick you, but okay. Anytime we're talking about the lender, any numbers, anytime we're talking about the lender fees, the lender numbers, they're always going to be of the loan amount. You guys have your lender hat on? What do you care about? Do you care about the sales price or do you care about the loan amount as the lender? You care about the loan amount because that's the money. So your problem will give you the purchase price. It will give you the loan amount. So don't let it trick you. Any lender fees are going to be of the loan amount, not the purchase price. So when we get to Unit 21, we're going to go to settlement and we're going to do some math to get us to settlement. And we're going to see discount points, and most of our buyers in Unit 21 are going to purchase discount points to lower their interest rate. Somebody says, is this common? Yeah, I would say it is. You very well may have been charged discount points when you bought your home. You maybe just didn't know it. So many charges. You guys, my homeowners, there's a lot of charges out there when you buy a home, right? So it might have just kind of gotten swept under the rug. I know right now there's lenders out there that are requiring buyers to buy discount points. It's a sign of the market that we're in right now. Some of you may be aware last year, 2 years ago, interest rates were 2 point something, 3 point something. Now they're up to 6 point something, 7 point something. So lenders are trying to provide the loan, but then they're also trying to have them sellable by having a higher yield. So there are lenders out there right now that will not let you originate a loan without buying discount points. So a discount point, we will see a debit to the buyer, and the number of discount points equates to the percentage of the loan. This is the one I'll guarantee that you're going to see. What questions, and we'll do some examples in just a second. What questions do I have on the first piece? The second piece of discount point math that you may see, I don't know if you'll see it or not, but the second piece of discount point math you may see is a question that says something like, if a buyer buys discount points, what will their new interest rate be? Or what will the lender's new yield be? So if we see that, then we're going to do, I guess, a separate piece of math. To determine the buyer's new interest rate or the lender's new yield, we're going to talk about discount point pi. Y'all like pi? You want to talk about pi? Let's talk about discount point pi. And discount point pi is always cut into 8 pieces. So discount point pi is cut into 8 pieces. And if you're buying one discount point, you're buying 1% of the loan, and you're reducing your interest rate by 1 piece of pie. The lender is increasing their interest rate by a piece of pie. If you're buying 2 discount points, then you're reducing your interest rate by 2 pieces of pie. If you're buying 4 discount points, you're reducing your interest rate by 4 pieces of pie. I don't know about you guys, but I hate fractions, and I hate the word hate. Anybody with me? Is that weird coming from a math nerd? Yeah. Let's not deal with fractions. The first thing I want you guys to do when you see something like 1/8, I want you to convert that thing into a decimal point. So 1 divided by 8 gives us a decimal of 0.125. 1 piece of pie is worth 1.25% interest rate. So for example, let's see, your buyer is buying. They are quoted an interest rate of 6.75%. The lender says, we'll give you an interest rate of 6.75%. And your buyer says, I want a lower interest rate. Is there anything you can do about that? And the lender says, well, you can buy some discount points. You can bring me some prepaid interest to closing, and you can buy down your interest rate. If they're buying 1 point, they're buying 0.125%. So their interest rate was 6.75. Now they buy a discount point, and their new interest rate is 6.625 for the next 30 years. They bring extra money to settlement. They bought down their interest rate, which means now their monthly payment for the next 30 years is going to be less than had they had the 6.75. What does that look like for the lender? Well, we all start with the same interest rate, but for the lender, it increases their yield. So the lender may say, we want you to buy a discount point so we can have a higher return, so we can have a higher yield. It reduces the borrower's interest rate. It increases the lender's yield. Again, 1 point is equal to 1 piece of pie, 2 points is 2 pieces of pie, 3 points is 3 pieces of pie. I like the visual of the pie. Helps me see how many pieces that buyer is buying. I always convert this to a decimal because I hate fractions. If you see this on your test, the only time I want you guys to worry about changing the interest rate is if the problem specifically says, what is the borrower's new interest rate? If it gives you an interest rate, if the problem gives you an interest rate, and it doesn't ask you what the new interest rate is, then you assume the interest rate they gave you is the new bought down interest rate. Everybody hear me? Do not worry about adjusting the interest rate unless the problem specifically says. Do not worry about messing with the lender's yield unless the problem specifically says. Questions? The addition on the right. So yeah, so this is the lender's yield over here. So this is the lender's yield. So it decreases the borrower's interest rate. So this is the borrower's. And this is the lender. And it increases the lender's yield.
So when does the lender get that money?
Say it again.
When does a lender get the money?
At settlement. The buyer brings that extra money to settlement.
So he's only getting the 6.875 for that initial thing. That's it. Then it goes to 625.
This is the lender's piece right here. For the lender, it's about the yield. For the borrower, it's about the interest rate. So they're getting the interest at settlement, and then they're selling the loan. They're collecting additional interest at settlement, and then they're selling the loan at a higher yield. They have a more sellable product. The higher the yield, the more sellable product on the secondary market. I'm getting ready to give you guys a problem to think about, to work. And of course, then we'll talk about it. But before I do that, I just want to remind us, last night we introduced you to something called the loan to value ratio. The loan to value ratio can help us find the value of the loan to the ratio. Any three of these can work. And a lot of times, guys, what you're going to see and what you're getting ready to see is that it gives you the purchase price. It tells you the value. It may give you the ratio. And then we have to find the loan amount. So if it gives you the value and it gives you the ratio, how do we find the loan amount? What's the up-down line mean on their T-bar? Up-down line means multiply. So the purchase price, remember, anytime it's about the lender, it's always of the loan amount. So if they don't actually give you the loan amount, they'll give you the value and the ratio so you can multiply and find that loan amount. Everybody have that jotted down? Loan to value ratio? Okay, all right. Private chat, I've got some questions for you guys. Here's your purchase price, 80% loan, 4.5% interest rate. The buyer's buying 2 discount points. Tell me in a private chat, how much is the buyer paying in discount points? What's their new interest rate? And what will the lender's yield be? We've got another minute and then we'll talk about it. Okay. Everybody come up with something? Something. All right, let's see what we got. So I got a purchase price of 265,000. My buyer's getting an 80% conventional loan at 4.5% interest rate. Buyer's purchasing 2 discount points. So the first thing we want to know is how much in discount points will the buyer pay at closing? How much more money will they bring to settlement to purchase to buy these discount points? So the first thing we need to do is figure out the loan amount, right? We need to figure out the number that we're working with. So when we find the loan amount, we use our loan to value ratio. My value is the purchase price or appraised amount, whichever's less. If they don't get me both, then we work with what we got. The lender's ratio is 80%. So up down line means multiply. You take 265,000 times 80%. We get a loan amount of $212,000. So step one is to find the loan amount. We're buying the home for 265. We're borrowing 212,000 from the lender. What does the lender care about? They care about the 212,000, right? Lender hats on. That's what you care about because that's your money. So that's what you care about is the loan amount. Questions so far? How we got the 212,000? So the first question says, how much at discount points will the borrower pay at closing? If they're getting 2 discount points, 2 discount points is equal to 2% of the loan. The number of discount points is the percentage of the loan. And what does the word of mean? When I say of the loan, what are we going to do? We're going to multiply. So I have my loan amount. I lost my mouse. There it is. I have my loan amount of 212,000. They're buying 2 discount points. So what they're actually buying, what that equates to is 2% of the loan. So we have our loan amount of 212,000 times 2%, which means at closing, they're going to bring, in addition to their down payment, they're going to bring $4,240. When we get into unit 21, we're going to see buyers have lots of debits. Sellers have a few debits. Buyers have some credits. Sellers have some debits. So we're going to break these down. But that $4,240 is going to be a debit to the buyer for their prepaid interest. Discount points. Questions on that? $4,240 debit to the buyer for discount points. The percentages, not the points themselves. The discount points tells us the percentage. The other thing that the discount points tells us is how many pieces of discount point pie. So now the next question says, what is the borrower's new interest rate and what is the lender's new yield? Discount points are always in eighths, which means our discount point pie is going to be 8 pieces. And the problem tells us that this borrower is going to buy 2 pieces of pie, right? 2 discount points is going to be equal to 2 pieces of pie. And what that looks like in a fraction is 2/8 or 1/4, depending on what you want to look at. So now that I have the fraction that we all hate, now we can convert that to a decimal of 0.25. So 2 pieces of pie means they're bringing 2% of the loan, but it also means they're buying down their interest rate 0.25%. I saw some aha moments, some light bulbs click on. Let me give you guys like 30 more seconds, 45 more seconds now, knowing what we know. Let me give you just a few more minutes to go back and caught up. I love seeing those light bulbs. I want to honor those light bulbs. So let me give you another minute to rethink. So 2 discount points is equal to 2 pieces of our 8-piece pie, which is 2/8. 2 divided by 8 is 0.25. So now the question says, what's the borrower's new interest rate? Well, they were given an interest rate of 4.5%. They brought 2 discount points to settlement, $4,240, which means they bought down their interest rate by 0.25%. So what's their new interest rate going to be for the life of the loan? For the borrower, for the next 30 years, their interest rate is going to be 4.25%. Why bring money, extra money? I mean, you're already bringing enough money to closing as a buyer. Why bring more in discount points? Because you get a lower interest rate, which if we were to amortize the two, we're going to see that your monthly payments are going to be less each month. Faster you can pay it off, right? Especially if you thought if you qualified for 4.5 and you ended up getting an interest rate for 4.25, it's definitely possible to pay it off sooner. So the borrower's new interest rate is 4.25. And by purchasing discount points, that's going to increase the lender's yield. So where we deduct from the buyer, we add to the lender. So their new yield will be 4.75%. Again, do not worry about adjusting the interest rates unless the problem specifically says, what is the borrower's new interest rate? If it doesn't ask you what the new interest rate is, and you do not have to worry about it. You will have to figure out how much the borrower will have to bring to closing and prepaid interest. That we will. I guarantee you'll see that. Questions? This is definitely a keep it simple kind of thing. Big picture. Discount points are prepaid interest. What do you get for prepaying interest? A lower interest rate. Thus, lower monthly payments. Isn't that what everybody cares about? What's in it for me? If you want me to bring extra money settlement, what do I get? Well, it's not a bad deal if you ask me, as long as you got the extra money, of course. Again, somebody asked if this was common. Absolutely. But as a borrower, there's a lot of charges. There's a lot of debits when you're buying a home. And I think sometimes it all gets shuffled into loan speak, right? Lender speak. You're like, whatever, just tell me where to sign. Sound familiar? Okay. So we'll see discount points again, this piece of it, again, in unit 21, because we get to go to closing. Another charge we may see, or no, you're definitely going to see at settlement as a borrower, and we'll see it again in unit 21 when we go to closing, is something called the loan origination fee. And the loan origination fee is what the lender charges the borrower to originate the loan. There's costs involved to originate the loan. You need staff, there's paperwork, you got to use the printer and turn the lights on in the office, right? The lender has expenses. And as we're going to learn in a minute, most lenders sell our loan as soon as they're originated. Not as soon, shortly after they're originated. And so a fee that they will charge to cover their costs, to cover their expenses, is called the loan origination fee. The loan origination fee is the loan amount times whatever percent the problem tells you. There's no formula for determining what the percentage of the origination fee is. The problem has to tell you the lender is charging X percent the loan origination fee, again, of the loan amount. So it's the loan amount times the percentage, loan origination fee percentage. So again, we got our purchase price of $265. We're getting an 80% loan. Private chat. What's the charge to the buyer going to be for the loan origination fee? Give about 30 more seconds and we'll talk about it. Okay. So again, we have a purchase price of $265. We know we're getting an 80% loan. This is the loan origination fee is going to be of the loan amount, not the purchase price. So to find our loan amount, we multiply, or we can use our T-bar. Our purchase price is the value. The lender's ratio is 80%. 265,000 times 80% gives us our loan amount of $212,000. All fees from the lender are always of the loan amount. Okay. The problem's got to tell you the percentage. Again, you guys, there is no across the board. All lenders are different. They can charge different rates, different fees. So the problem specifically will have to tell you. This one tells us the origination fee is 1% of the loan amount. What's the word of mean? Multiply. So we take 212,000 times 1%. We get a loan origination fee of $2,120. So this buyer is going to have two charges from the lender. One for discount points, prepaid interest, always the loan origination fee. The lender's got to make money too. Questions on this? Wrap up this unit, page 377. We talk about some different loan repayment plans. These are all green stars except for the first one. The first one is the fixed rate level payment. The reason it is a yellow star is because this is the most common. This is our amortized loan. When you see, again, with our lender hat on to speak lender speak, when you see rate, they're referring to the interest rate. So the fixed rate means once your interest rate is set, it's locked in. It's the same interest rate you have for the life of the loan, because remember, your debt service is the same for the life of the loan. So the most common thing we see is our fixed rate level payment, and that's our amortized loan. Other loan repayment plans that may be available. There's something called an interest only repayment plan, which means the only payments you're making are the interest. And once you pay off that interest, you have the principal, the amount that you borrowed, due at the end, at the last payment. That last amount due is your balloon payment. Have you guys ever heard of a balloon payment in lender terms? So when you pay your last payment and you still have an amount due, that amount due is your loan payment or your balloon payment. So in this case, all you're paying is interest. Once you pay off the interest, then you have the principal as your balloon payment. These are mostly short-term loans, think 3 to 5 years. And probably the most common example of an interest-only loan is a developer that's buying a plot of land, going to subdivide it, build a bunch of houses, and turn around and sell it. They may choose to buy the land with an interest only. 3 to 5 years later, hopefully they've built and they're selling houses and they have that principal amount. They know that balloon payment is coming. Another loan repayment plan we might see is an adjustable rate mortgage, also known as an ARM. With an adjustable rate mortgage, the interest rate adjusts throughout the life of the loan. It could go up, it could go down. Nice picture for us on page 379. So the rate fluctuates up and down. How does it fluctuate? How much does it go up and down? It's all spelled out in your promissory note. So an adjustable rate means your interest rate fluctuates, which means your payments fluctuate. Other repayment plans, something called a graduated payment mortgage. The payment starts lower and then it increases as time goes on, usually predetermined dates. Your payment goes up. with these, the expectation is maybe you don't have a whole lot of money right now and you can't make really big payments right now. But the expectation is that in time, you'll be making money and you can make higher payments. For graduated payment mortgages, think of like a startup business, for example. You're just getting started. You're not making any money yet, are you? So you need smaller payments, but as your business grows, your payments graduate. It's not uncommon with graduated payment mortgages to have negative amortization at first. Remember last night we looked at our amortization schedule and we watched that balance go down each month, just a teeny tiny little bit each month. Negative amortization means the first couple years, your balance could actually go up. And then as your payment starts increases, then you start seeing those balances go down. A balloon payment is what we've been referring to with that non-fully amortized or non-fully paid off loan. Again, once you make your last payment, you are done. There are no more stubs left in your payment book. You've made your last payment, but you still have a balance due. You still owe money. That money you still owe is your balloon payment, one lump sum once you've made your last payment. And then growing equity mortgage, your interest rates are fixed, but your principal payments are going to increase as time goes on. Usually with growing equity mortgage, we've had some kind of predetermined schedule that we're going to follow. So for example, your growing equity, your principal payment might increase as the cost of living increases. Whenever the cost of living increases, then your principal payment increases. So the interest rates are fixed. It's the principal payment that grows. We're going to talk a little bit about equity when we get into Unit 12. Equity is what the borrower has invested, the borrower's money that they've had invested. So my homeowners on the call, if you have equity in your home, you just take your value minus your debt. Your value minus your debt gives you your equity. And that's what you've invested. That's your money. We're going to do just a teeny tiny little bit with equity math in unit, I think it's 12. We're going to talk about investors. Investors like to crunch numbers, you know, what's going on with their monies, etc.
So just curious, that is the equity. I know we're going to talk about that more in chapter 12, but this is only if you have gotten a loan, correct? Like you can only grow equity from a loan.
Value minus debt. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That debt refers to your, yep. So if you don't have debt, value minus 0 is your value. So the value of the property is the equity that you have in it. Right? If you don't have a loan, how much debt do you have? 0. So $100,000 value minus 0 says you have got how much equity? $100,000. Not bad, hey. Okay. That gets us through Unit 14. Those key terms on 363. Again, you guys, 14 and 15 are our lender units. It's like a whole new language in here, whole new vocabulary. To speak lender, know what the words mean. There's your key point review, pages 383. Then your student quiz starting on page 385. Remember on 387, numbers 28, 29, and 30, we can't do yet. We got to wait till we get to the end of Unit 15 before we can do 28, 29, and 30 on page 387. There's some additional math for you. You got your math concepts on page 380 to 382. I believe there's more on these pages than what you need to know. So just focus on what we went over in class, the math that we went over in class. And then there's those 50 problems in the back of the book, pages 803 to 808. These are the numbers that relate to the math that we just did. Lots of good discount point math back there, loan origination fee math, and more of this coming as we get into Unit 21. Questions? Real quick, before we go to break, I did want to let you guys know, I found out for sure your midterm link is good until midnight tomorrow night. The link goes away at midnight. So if you start at 11:55, you got to get it done in 5 minutes. Does this make sense? You have until midnight tomorrow night. Is everybody good with that? Is that on everybody's agenda for the next day and a half? Yep. Okay, cool. Midnight tomorrow night. So let's take 10. We come back, we get into Unit 15. And we're back. One financing unit down, one to go. And then we get to go to closing. I think unit 21 is my favorite. Closing's always fun. You'll learn one day. Closing day is a good day. All right. So we're back and I am taking attendance. Oh, Tessa, I just got you. You're in. So now we're moving on to unit 15. 14 was the principles. 15 is about the practices. So we're going to talk more about the lending practices, the things that our buyers and sellers may ask us about, some just day-to-day things going on in the lender world. So we're going to define some different mortgage loans. We're going to talk about a conventional loan, FHA loan, VA loan. We're going to talk about a USDA loan. There's several different types of mortgage loans out there. We're going to describe the players in the mortgage lending practices, who the players are. I think my PowerPoint got off. We're going to do some math. And then we're going to explain some residential lending practices and procedures. And then the math that we're going to do, we're going to determine what your monthly principal and interest is. So remember last night we gave you the $499.55. So by the end of unit 15, we'll know how to calculate that $499.55 if it doesn't give it to you. And then we're going to do some math about how you, when you're working with a buyer, if the lender's not available, can do a quick qualification to make sure it's worth both of your times to show them the property. So if we can't get the lender, then we need a basic understanding of how this works. So in unit 15, just an introduction to the financing market. We talked last night about the housing market crash. And there's a cajillion theories out there about what went wrong, what caused the housing market crash. And while we're not getting into all those theories, I will say one of the more common theories was fraudulent lending practices. And because the theory of fraudulent lending practices was one of the possibilities that put us into the housing market crash, we had some laws and some rules that came from that to help better protect the consumer. Anything to do with lender laws today are about consumer protection. So Dodd-Frank, don't need to know that, gave us what's known as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And then from the housing market crash, October 3rd, 2015, we got something called TRID, which we will define on the next screen. So there's some things in place now to help protect the consumer with mortgage lending. And please don't get me wrong, you guys, not all lenders were fraudulent. Not all lenders were bad. But you know, it's the small few that make up for the whole, right? And I think that was part of, again, one of the theories about the housing market crash. So what is this TRID I speak of? We're an industry of acronyms. Yes, we like our acronyms. By golly, if we can make an acronym out of it, we're going to. Lenders are the same thing. And TRID is the acronym of all acronyms. There's acronyms within acronyms. TRID stands for the TILA RESPA Integrated Disclosure. TILA is an acronym for the Truth in Lending Act. RESPA is an acronym for the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. TILA was always around. RESPA was always around. TRID combined them. TRID put them together. One of the more common complaints from consumers was TILA had forms and RESPA had forms, and they were both very similar. Consumers thought they were signing the same thing twice. They're like, I already signed this. Why do I have to sign it again? One was for TILA, one was for RESPA, and it was confusing. I mean, again, you guys that have bought a home and gotten a 30-year loan. I mean, you remember your paperwork at the attorney's office? It was like a stack of paper like this big, right? He came out and kind of plopped it down in front of you, you know, and a lot of that paperwork was the lender paperwork. You get a cash buyer and the lender's not around. Now your closing paperwork is like this big, right? It goes down. So there's a lot of paperwork with originating a 30-year loan. And one thing that Dodd-Frank did for us was to integrate TILA and RESPA. They brought them together, and now they work together, one set of documents. We're going to talk a little bit more about TILA in this unit. We're going to talk more about RESPA in Unit 21. Although they are integrated now, they still do both. They still both do two different things. When you guys see TILA, I want you to see lending. See the word lending. TILA tells the consumer the cost to obtain the loan. TILA tells the consumer, how much is it going to cost me to get this 30-year loan, for example. When you see the word RESPA, I want you to see the word settlement. RESPA tells the consumer the cost to close. So TILA covers lending charges, RESPA covers settlement charges, closing charges. Again, talking about a little bit more on each, just introducing you to TRID. So let's talk, starting on page 390. We got three different players in the mortgage lending game, we'll call it. The first set of players, the top tiers, are the feds, the Federal Reserve System. The feds are the ones that regulate money in the economy. Money going in, money coming out. Feds regulate money in the economy to help keep a stable market. It's a market. You're always going to have fluctuations. You're always going to have ups and downs. But we don't want really big ups. We don't want really big downs. You guys ever heard of the Great Depression, for example? So we don't want these extremes. So by the feds regulating the money out there, they can better control the supply. They can better control the interest rates. And when it comes to the mortgage loans, one thing the feds can also do is provide money to the lenders to turn around and lend to us. Guys, please understand, our mortgage lenders do not have this endless supply of money somewhere. To lend you money to buy a house, they have to get it from somewhere. It's not like they have this money tree out back that they can just go pluck a $100,000 bill and say, here you go buy a house. You guys with me? So for the lenders to lend you money, they got to get it from somewhere. And one place that they may get it is from the feds. Do you think the Fed is going to charge the lender to give them money? Yeah. Then the lenders turn around and pass that cost on to me and you. So the feds are the top tier of the mortgage lending players. The next tier you have is your primary mortgage market. Who are the players that you and I originate the loan from? When you want to go buy a house, you're going to call Bank of America, for example, or Wells Fargo, or Fairway Mortgage, or Movement Mortgage. You're going to call a lender. That lender is a player on the primary mortgage market. They're the ones that you and I communicate with directly. They make their money from financing charges. An example of that may be loan origination fees. And if they keep their loans in-house, they also make the interest rates, the interest payments. Some lenders keep their loans in-house, some sell them. So the primary market are the players that you and I communicate with. Once the loan is originated, you've bought the house, the deed's in your name, you're moving in, the loan has been originated. The lenders that choose to sell their loan, sell it to the players in the secondary mortgage market. The secondary mortgage market purchases loans from the primary mortgage market. So remember we said last night, why do they do that? So I think I asked this, let me ask you again, my homeowners on the call. How many of you are making your mortgage payments to the lender that originated your loan? A handful of you, a very small handful of you. I saw like 2. The rest of you, after you originate the loan, after you closed, you probably got a letter that says, hey, you have a new lender. Maybe it was in the next couple weeks, couple months, couple years, doesn't matter. I've gotten calls from buyers before. My lender sold my loan. I don't know why. I thought they liked me. I thought they had a relationship. Guys, don't get me wrong. Your lender loves you. They're not selling your loan because they don't like you. Why do they sell your loan? Because it replenishes their funds. The lenders only have so much money to lend out. And when I give you, and you a loan, I have no more money. So how can I originate new loans? I sell your loans on the secondary market that replenishes my funds. And now I have more money to originate loans to you, and you. So the lenders in the primary market are either getting their money by selling your loan to the secondary mortgage market or getting it directly from the feds. Either way, there's costs involved. And those costs, a lot of times, we're the kind of the bottom of the barrel, aren't we? So a lot of times those costs get put on to me and you. Those are our origination fees, our interest rates, whatever they need to charge to make up for it. So the feds regulate the money supplies. You and I get loans directly from the primary mortgage players. If the primary is going to sell their loans, they sell their loans to players on the secondary mortgage market to replenish their funds so they can originate new loans to help keep money flowing in the economy. Think about some of the price tags attached to real estate. That's some big money in the economy, isn't it? So specifically, who are the players on the secondary mortgage market? Well, I'm willing to bet you've heard at least one of these. You guys ever heard about Fannie Mae? Fannie is the biggest player in the secondary mortgage market. Fannie is the biggest, she's the oldest, she's the one that's been around the longest. By the way, the FNMA, GNMA, that's all spelled out in your book, page 393 to 394. I don't think you need to know the FNMA, GNMA, all that, but it is spelled out for you so you can reference it. Fannie Mae is the biggest, she's the oldest player, she's the one that's been around the longest. Fannie will buy anything. She is the hungriest. Fannie will buy conventional loans, she'll buy FHA loans, she'll buy VA loans, she'll buy it all. Another player in the secondary mortgage is Ginnie Mae. Ginnie's not as old, Ginnie's not as hungry. Ginnie's not going to buy all loans. Ginnie's only going to buy FHA and VA loans. In just 1 minute, we're going to talk about conventional FHA and VA. And in 1 minute, we're going to learn that our FHA and our VA loans are our government-backed loans. These are the 2 loans that are backed by the government. I will talk more about that. But it helps me to remember that Ginnie buys our government loans. GG. Jenny will not buy a non-government loan. Jenny buys government, GG. Freddie Mac is even more particular, more picky. Freddie is only going to buy conventional loans. Freddie is not going to buy government loans. Fannie buys them all. Jenny buys government. Freddie buys conventional. I want you guys to make a note. If you haven't already, pages 394, 395 in your book talk about the housing market crash. Please make a note to read that. I think that kind of helps us have a better understanding why we are here today in the mortgage lending world. I've mentioned a couple times the housing market crash, tough. And this kind of gives us a better idea. So again, make yourself a note. Little history lesson for you. So let's talk about the different loan types. We're not talking about them all, of course, but we are going to talk about a few. Remember, this is about mortgage loans. So one mortgage loan type is a conventional loan. A conventional loan is not backed by the government. When we say backed by the government, we're saying the government provides the lender a safety net. And with conventional loans, the government does not provide the lender a safety net. Remember, the lender's just fine as long as you're making your payments. When you stop making your payments, now the lender starts wondering, uh-oh, how am I going to get my money back? And in conventional loans, the lender doesn't have that safety net of the government, which means the lender bears all the risk. In the event of the borrower's default, that all comes from the lender. That all affects the lender's bottom line. And one thing that the lender may do to protect themselves is charge PMI, also known as private mortgage insurance. That's how they can help alleviate their risk. Lenders generally, for conventional loans, lenders generally charge PMI on loans 80% or higher. Should I do it that way? Let's do it that way. 80% or higher. So whenever the lender's loan to value ratio is 80% or more, they generally will charge a private mortgage insurance, puts a little bit of extra money in their pocket in the event of the borrower's default. The lower the loan to value ratio, the less risky you are to the lender. Remember, what's the lender care about? And the only thing they care about? Their money. So the higher your loan to value ratio, the more risky you are to the lender. And anything with a loan to value ratio of 80% or higher, the lender will probably charge private mortgage insurance until you get your loan to value ratio below 80%. Once you get that below 80%, then they usually drop the PMI. Conforming versus non-conforming loans. Conforming loans meet certain bank requirements. Conforming loans are generally more sellable on the secondary market because they conform. They have these bank requirements. Non-conforming loans then don't have these bank requirements, and they're not as sellable. Remember, not all lenders sell their loans. Some keep them in-house. So if they're going to keep them in-house, they may be able to do non-conforming and not have all of those bank requirements that the secondary mortgage market players are looking for. So talking about our PMI, just a little bit more. If the property appraises for $100,000, the loan is $90,000. To find the loan to value ratio, remember our loan to value ratio. Loan to value ratio. My loan amount is 90,000. It appraised for 100,000. So the question is, what is our loan to value ratio? That fourth line means divide. So you take 90,000, divide it by 100,000, which means through the eyes of the lender of the appraised value, how much is the borrower asking for? 90%. If the borrower is asking the lender for 90%, how much are they bringing to the table? I mean, it says right there, but how much are they bringing? Itty bitty 10%, right? These guys are showing up with $10,000 saying, I'm going to buy a house. As long as you give me $90,000. Because the loan to value ratio is more than 90%, the lender for this conventional loan is going to charge private mortgage insurance until that ratio gets below 80%. Remember your amortization schedule? When you came back from closing, it's in that packet of paperwork that you brought back from the attorney's office. It's still probably in a drawer somewhere. That amortization schedule is going to include the private mortgage insurance until that value gets below 80%, excuse me, that ratio gets below 80%. So conventional loans have no support, no backing, no safety net by the government. The lender bears all the risk, and how they can help protect themselves is by charging this PMI insurance. Another loan, mortgage loan type that we have is our FHA insured loans. FHA insured loans are offered under HUD. HUD is a government housing program, housing of urban development. FHA does not offer insurance. Don't let the name trick you. FHA doesn't originate loans. They don't set interest rates. They don't determine loan origination fees. They don't require discount points. Lenders are free to charge what they want to charge. Lenders are free to set their own fees. What the FHA loan does is insure the lender in the event of the borrower's default. FHA provides a safety net for the lender in the event of the borrower's default. There are generally some higher criteria for borrowers to apply for FHA loans because now the government's involved. So there's generally some higher criteria for the people. Not all properties are going to qualify for an FHA loan. It's a different appraisal process. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But there are some perks. For example, last I heard, y'all do not quote me on this. I know this won't be on your test, but write this in pencil. Last I heard, FHA was allowing borrowers that qualify to put 3.5% down. So if the borrower is putting 3.5% down, how much is the lender offering? What's the lender's loan to value ratio? Is that crazy? How can they give you 96.5%? Because they have the safety net of the government. They have that protection. They have that insurance in the event of the borrower's default. Again, the process is tighter than a conventional. So not all people and not all properties are going to qualify for an FHA loan. Specifically, FHA loans applies to residential for 1 to 4 unit property loans. So if you have a duplex, for example, you might be eligible for an FHA loan. If it's 5 or more units, no FHA. If it's commercial, no FHA. They do require owner occupancy in one of the units. So if you're getting an FHA loan, you got to live there. FHA charges a one-time fee at closing called a MIP, mortgage insurance premium. It's in addition to any discount points. It's in addition to the loan origination fee. It's a one-time fee. Like we said, the appraisal process is tighter. The property has to meet certain guidelines in order for the government to insure the lender. The government's got to approve this before they offer that insurance to the lender. So the appraisal process is a little tighter. Not all homes are going to qualify. Just make yourself a side note. When you start working with that buyer that's trying to get an FHA loan or trying to buy a property with an FHA loan, you'll have resources. You can go to FHA's website, for example, and they will tell you things that probably won't allow the home to qualify for an FHA loan, for an appraisal. So, for example, if the roof is 30 years old, you probably won't get FHA loan because the government's going to say, well, they got to put a new roof on it soon. So if they put a new roof on it soon, are they still going to be able to pay the lender that mortgage payment? If you have a home built prior to 1978 and there's chipped paint, FHA probably won't approve the home. So the condition of the home with an FHA appraisal absolutely is involved. FHA isn't going to charge prepayment penalties. Remember, we talked about prepayment penalties last night. Prepayment penalties is a penalty they can charge if you pay your loan off early. Well, those aren't allowed on FHA loans. And FHA loans can generally be assumed. The buyer, in some cases, can assume the seller's loan. If the buyer is assuming the seller's loan, they're taking over their loan payment. So if I'm buying your house today and I'm assuming your loan, you made the mortgage payment on February 1st. I'm going to make it on March 1st. I'm just going to pick up where you left off. If the buyer qualifies, and so does the property, then the FHA loan may be able to be assumed. There are, just so you know, there's several different types of FHA loans. If you look 398 and 399, the most common FHA loan is a 203B. You guys see assumption rules. So 203B is the most common, but you could also get an FHA loan for, there's a home improvement loan, Title I, Title II at 399 are loans for condos. Title II, Section 245, is our graduated payment. Section 251 is our ARM. So there's several different types of FHA loans. I would just focus on the big picture. The 203B is the most common FHA. Questions on FHA? Another loan type that's backed by the government is our VA guaranteed loan. VA loans are set aside specifically for our veterans. Not all veterans will qualify for a VA loan. They still have to go through an approval process. They still have to get approval by the lender. VA loan may not also only qualify for our eligible vets, but they may also be available for our vets, unremarried widows and widowers. So an unremarried widow or widower of a vet may also qualify for a VA loan. These are handled by the Department of Veteran Affairs, the VA. Again, the VA does not guarantee the loan. The VA does not guarantee the loan amount, the interest rates, the terms. They don't tell the lender what to do. The VA guarantees the lender in the event of the borrower's default. The VA offers a safety net to the lender in the event of the borrower's default. These again qualify 1 to 4 unit property loans. We got to be owner occupied. The people have to qualify. The vets have to qualify. Not all properties are going to qualify for a VA loan. Again, they just have a tighter appraisal process. Y'all thought 3.5% down payment was pretty good? For VA loans, eligible vets may qualify for 0 down payment. For our VA loans, for our eligible vets, in some cases, 100% financing is available. Isn't that a great program for our vets? The VA does charge a funding fee. It's a one-time fee charged at settlement. The eligible vet can roll that funding fee into their financing. They can roll it into their payments, and they may not be money that they'd have to bring to closing. When we say 0 down, that's exactly what we mean. Isn't that nice? I get the little shivers when I think about this program because it's nice. Each eligible vet gets what's known as a certificate of eligibility. And that certificate of eligibility tells the VA, it determines how much the borrower can get. So the approval process, the certificate of eligibility, determines how much the VA borrower can get, how much they can borrow. The vet can only have one certificate of eligibility out there at a time. So if you have a VA loan and you want to buy another home, you're not going to be able to do it with a VA loan because you can only have one certificate of eligibility. You pay this one off, you can qualify for a different certificate of eligibility. But you only get one at a time. And the appraisal process is known as a certificate of reasonable value. This is the appraisal process that makes sure that the home qualifies, and it helps the lender determine how much they can lend. It's strict. I had VA buyers once, and they were buying a flipped home, and everything was just about done. I mean, a few things left, and I don't know why. But when the appraiser showed up to do the appraisal, the CRV, for some reason, the owners hadn't gotten the plates that go out over your light switches and your electrical outlets. Those little plates that are like 27 cents at Lowe's, and you put 2 little screws in and it covers. And so we weren't getting loan approval because we didn't have those plates on. And of course, the sellers were like, oh, for goodness sakes, we're on it, we're doing it right now. So they did it like the next day. I'm sure it was on their to-do list. And they said, okay, we're done. And the appraiser had to come back out and verify that those plates were there. Y'all, my closing was delayed a couple days because the appraiser, and I said, can I send you some pictures or video or something? And they said, no, the appraiser needs to see. I guess, and I get it, because kids and dogs like to stick their fingers into stuff, so I get trying to keep everybody safe. But yeah, I had a closing delayed a couple days because of those plates, because we weren't getting loan approval. They got the plates, the appraiser came back out, he was happy, we were good to go. We were all happy. It's tight. It's a tight appraisal process. VA loans can also be assumed by anyone. Any qualified buyer can assume a VA loan. The qualified buyer assuming the loan doesn't have to be a vet. Anyone can assume a VA loan, but remember, the vet can only have one certificate of eligibility out there at a time. So if they allow somebody else to assume their loan, their certificate of eligibility is not restored until it gets paid off. The VA loan also does not charge prepayment penalties. No prepayment penalties, the VA. Remember in Unit 10, we were looking at our addenda, and one of our addendum that we looked at was the FHA VA addendum. If your buyer's getting an FHA or VA loan, that's an addenda you need to add to the offer. The FHA and the VA addenda protect the buyer's earnest money deposit in the event the property, if it doesn't appraise and the buyer chooses to terminate because it doesn't appraise. Remember when we talked about the lender defining value as the sales price or the appraised amount, whichever is less. So if the home doesn't appraise for the sales price and the borrower chooses to terminate, the FHA VA addendum will get them their money back, even if we're after due diligence. The other thing that the FHA VA addendum does, there are certain inspections required by the VA. For example, the VA will require the pest inspection, but the VA very rarely allows the vet to pay for it. So they require the inspection, but they're not going to let their borrower pay for it. So if the buyer's not going to pay for it, who's left? The seller. As a listing agent, do you think that's something important to discuss with your seller? If you accept this offer, you will have to pay for the pest inspection. If it's on a well, if the water's on a well, they may require, well, they will require a well inspection. If it's on a septic, they're going to require septic inspection, but they don't let their vets pay for it. So that FHA VA addendum gets that information to the seller for them to consider with the terms of the offer. There's also a nice, I wouldn't get too bogged down in this, but on page 400, there's kind of a nice side-by-side comparison of FHA VA. Again, we're just grazing the surfaces of these loan types. We don't need to get, too involved. If you do, you can go to mortgage lending school when you're done with this. We're just introducing you to the ideas, the topics. Questions on VA loans? Another loan product we have is USDA. What do y'all think of when you hear USDA? Do you just think of a big juicy steak? If so, you're my kind of people. Meat, farmlands, agricultural. So USDA loans are for rural areas. Therefore, our farmlands are agricultural loans. You are not going to get a USDA loan in downtown. You got to go to a rural area. And it's not just farm loans, agricultural loans. They do provide loans for low to moderate income families in rural areas. So agricultural, farm loans, and also low to moderate income families in rural areas. With USDA, there are some eligibility requirements. Again, it's got to be in a rural area. The property has to qualify. Families that currently don't have safe or decent housing may qualify. Families that can't get any other financing. Again, low to moderate income families in rural areas may qualify. Again, once you get your license, when you're working with a buyer that is interested, that's going for a USDA loan, one thing you're going to want to do before you take them out and show them property is first off, make sure that it's in a rural area. Don't go around showing property if you don't even know the location will qualify. So before you go out and show that property, you can go to USDA's website and put in the address and it'll tell you. It has a map on their website and everything, and it'll tell you. The yellow area is urban downtown. The little pin is downtown Winston-Salem. The non-yellow area out here, these are your rural areas that would qualify. So if you're familiar, here's Belews Creek, Tobaccoville. Y'all check it out. Rural Hall ain't so rural anymore, is it? Rural Hall's grown so much in population, they no longer qualify. Isn't that something? Do they need a rename? I don't know. But the map updates as populations adjust. So again, when you're working with that buyer, just go to USDA's website, pop in the address and make sure that the location would qualify. They do offer longer than normal repayment periods. The longer the payment, the smaller the monthly payment. So for example, a 30-year loan, they may require a 33-year payoff, right? It's the same loan terms, they're just stretching the time out, so your monthly payments are smaller. There's usually little down payment for borrowers that qualify. And then they may have subsidized interest rates, which means they don't accrue interest. You're deferring some of those interest payments. Think about like your student loans, when you can defer your student loans. Again, smaller payments help these low to moderate income families. Questions on USDA? Scratching surfaces. Other types of loans, we may have something called a purchase money mortgage. Purchase money mortgage is seller financing. Purchase money mortgage is seller financing. Purchase money mortgage is what? Seller financing. Way too easy to say seller financing on your test. You know what they may like to say? Purchase money mortgage. With seller financing, the seller is acting as the lending institution. We go to closing, the deed changes hands. The buyer's not making payments to a lender. They're making payments directly to the seller. Remember back in Unit 10, we talked about an installment land contract? An installment land contract, the buyer is paying the purchase price. They're not doing it in one lump sum, they're doing it in installments. The difference between an installment land contract and a purchase money mortgage is when the deed changes hands. With a purchase money mortgage, the deed changes hands at closing. With installment financing, the deed changes hands when the last payment is made. In both cases, the buyer's paying the seller mortgage payments, agreed upon mortgage payments. We got to agree to all those terms. The difference between the two is when the deed changes hands. And then on page 403, we have other types of loans, even less of a basic understanding, like very, very basic understanding. A package loan combines real property and personal property. You're packaging them together. For example, it's not uncommon if you're buying a condo at the beach to buy it furnished. So if you're buying a furnished condo, did y'all just think of a bunch of wicker when I said that? If you're buying a furnished condo, you're buying the condo, you're buying the real property, but you're also buying the furniture, the personal property. So package loans could be used for that. Bridge loans are short-term loans. Think of a bridge. A bridge loan is meant to cover the gap, the very small amount of time from when one loan ends to when another one originates. Maybe it's a couple days, maybe it's just a week, but if there's a small period of time from when one loan ends to when another one begins, you could get a bridge loan to get you through that, to bridge the gap. Blanket mortgages cover more than one parcel of land. If you're buying multiple parcels, multiple lands, think about a developer that's buying 5 parcels of land to combine them, subdivide them, and build on them. They might purchase those 4, did I say 4? However many pieces of land. So more than one parcel of land. An open-ended mortgage is a line of credit. You're borrowing against your property. Construction loans, getting loans to build new construction. Construction loans are risky for the lender. Think about it. You're standing on a hunk of dirt asking for money for something that doesn't exist yet. You're asking the lender to fund your dream to build your own house. Generally, in a construction loan, the lender will provide the loan in payments and sections. So they're not going to give you all the money all at once. They're going to do it like maybe after framing, then they'll release more money. And then they come out and they see that the sheetrock and the walls and the ceilings are up. You know, there's different stages of construction that they will offer money. They got to see that progress. Makes sense, right? You're asking money for a dream. Kind of risky to the lender. Buy down loans are a way to lower your initial interest rate. the interest rate will probably increase as time goes on, but you can buy down the initial interest rate at first. Again, the expectation is that your income is going to increase. Home equity loans are also secured by the residents. It's also borrowing against your property. Home equity loans are usually to pay off large expenses. So think about like an unexpected medical expense, for example. You could get a home equity loan, borrow against your existing property to pay off those large expenses. Very similar to an open-ended mortgage. Home equities are more for those bigger expenses. Pay down some debt. And then reverse mortgages are exactly like they sound. Instead of the borrower paying the lender's paying the borrower. Remember, we just talked about equity. If you have equity in the home, instead of selling your home and cashing out, you could have the lender send you money. These sometimes work for seniors, for elderly people, help supplement their income. You got to have equity in the home for the lender to send you money. So if you have your home paid off, Tom Selleck is the current spokesman for reverse mortgages. Have you guys seen him on commercials? That make you feel old when you saw Tom Selleck doing commercials for reverse mortgages? But he's the current spokesperson. Look out for his commercial. I guess you got to watch daytime TV to see that, but he's so just a mortgage type where the monthly payments are made to the borrower, depending on how much equity you have in the home. Again, you guys, when I say very basic understanding, just that. Focus on conventional FHA, VA, USDA, and purchase money mortgage. Make yourself a note to look these over the night before the test. Very basic understanding. Questions? Let's take 10. And we're back. Okay. So I am taking attendance. We're getting back in unit 15. Okay. Talking next about mortgage priorities. We've talked about lien priorities, mortgage priorities fall in the same category. We know that liens are paid in the order in which they recorded. And I have taken attendance, so please let me know that you're back in a private chat. Priorities are paid in the order in which they're recorded, except for the mechanics lien that's paid in the order in which it began. Mortgage priorities, mortgage loans fall under a category of senior mortgages and junior mortgages. Your senior mortgage is your first mortgage. Your senior mortgage is what you originated when you purchased the home. Your junior mortgages are your second mortgage, your third mortgage, your fourth mortgage, any mortgage after that. So you originate the home today with your senior mortgage. 5 years from now, you get a second loan. That's your junior mortgage. And lien priority says that your senior mortgage is going to get paid first, right? Because it was recorded when you bought the home 5 years ago. So if we look at a timeline, you may have your senior mortgage getting, originated here when you bought the home. And then somewhere down the road, your junior mortgage was originated. A subordination agreement is the act of placing something in a lower rank. So if mortgage priority changes, the senior mortgage is always going to want to be placed first. They're going to want the junior mortgages in a lower rank. Let's say, for example, you decide to refinance your senior mortgage. When you refinance, you redo the terms, renegotiate the terms, and then it gets re-recorded. And when it gets re-recorded, after the junior mortgage. The senior mortgage is not going to agree to do the financing if the junior mortgage doesn't agree to subordinate. So in order for the senior mortgage to do the refinance, the junior mortgage has to agree to be placed in a lower ranking than the senior. The senior still wants paid first, yes? And if you're asking to do a refinancing, they're not going to do it unless the junior mortgage agrees to subordinate. Let's see, junior, senior mortgages for the different property. Nope, it's for the same property. Good question. Thank you. Senior, junior mortgages are for the same property. You're just taking out another loan on the home. Maybe you want to do some major repairs, renovations, right? Maybe you want to remodel or redo. So that might be one. Maybe you have some major medical bills and you want to borrow against, you take a loan out on your home and have another mortgage. So yep, it's all on the same property. Then another question, how many mortgages have you seen on a property at one time? I told you about my 11.5-month short sale last night. I think that thing had 3 mortgages on it. By the way, your junior mortgages, the interest rates, really high. Think about the risk for those lenders, because lien priority says the senior's getting paid first, right? So that's a great deal of risk for the lender. So how can they help alleviate that risk? Interest rates. Thank you. So now starting on page 405, we're going to talk more about the residential lending practices and procedures. So again, mortgage loans, specific residential loans, commercial loans can get a little different, business loans, that kind of thing, but just specific residential. So on page 405, we start talking about those residential lending practices and procedures. we're going to actually define the loan application, I think in unit 21. But for right now, let's just understand that the loan application is getting the information about the borrower, the property, and the loan. We got to get information on each. We're going to talk about pre-approval and pre-qualification. There's only so far in the loan process that the borrower can go. We can get the people pre-approved, but we can't actually start the loan process until we know what property do they want to buy. In other words, we got to get them under contract before the lender can really start doing their thing. They can do a pre-approval and give you an idea. They can do a pre-qualification and give you an idea. We'll talk more about that. But the pre-approval and the pre-qualification are no guarantee. They're just saying that the lenders looked at your numbers and they feel like you can get this amount. The actual process doesn't start until we go under contract and we know what property and what amount we're dealing with, the purchase price that we're dealing with. I took a class a couple years ago. It was called the ABCs of Financing. And it was pretty interesting. But I learned a lot in that class. But one thing that I learned was that the loan application considers 6 things. There's 6 things that the loan application has to approve. And those 6 things, 3 of those things are about the people. The other 3 of those things are about the property. So there's only so far that we can go until we get that property. And one place where you and I, the real estate agent, can really help our borrowers is understanding this lending practices and procedures, understanding the basics of how this works. Because the lenders are having conversations with borrowers, but it helps that we're having conversations as well. And I think one of the best things that we can do to protect our buyers is to tell them not to alter their credit picture while we're under contract. So when we go under contract, the lender takes like a snapshot of the borrower, snapshot of their debits, credits, everything they owe. When we get to closing, the lender takes another snapshot of the borrower's debits, credits. And if the two aren't close, we have a problem. And so one thing we can do is tell our buyers while we're under contract, do not run out and buy a new car for your new garage. Do not run out to Rooms To Go and open up a new account to buy your new dining room and living room furniture. No new accounts, no new lines of credit. Now, can you put dinner tonight on your credit card? Of course you can. But that picture from the time you go under contract to the time you go to closing has got to be similar. No new accounts, no new open accounts. Because not only could that delay closing, because now we got to crunch the new numbers, or the lender has to crunch the new numbers, but it could also not get loan approval because the numbers that they're issuing loan approval on is the snapshot when we went under contract. Guys, I'm not one of those agents, but there are agents out there that have stories of buyers that got excited and went out and bought a new car on credit, got a loan to buy a car. You know what happens when you get a loan to buy a car? You're not going to get a loan to buy a house because now the lender's saying, yeah, you're going to pay them back. Prepay me. You guys with me? There have been actual cases of buyers. So look at your buyers and say, buy the car after closing. Go to Rooms To Go after closing. So I think this is one of the biggest things we can do is have this discussion with our buyers to help protect them instead of getting to a couple days before closing and find out they can't get loan approval. Can you imagine? I don't want you guys to have to imagine. One thing that lenders definitely will look at with the borrowers is the credit score. Credit score is not the final decision. The credit score just tells the lender the borrower's history. Our credit scores range 300 to 850. The higher the score, the lower the risk you are to your lender. If you have a credit score at 850 or 800, 750, that tells the lender that you make your payments on time every time. If you have a credit score of 500, you're missing payments. You're not making payments. So the credit score helps the lender learn. Uh-oh. Are you guys here? Uh-oh. Are we frozen?
I can hear you.
You guys are here. Okay. You can hear and see just fine. Good, good. So it just must be on my end. As long as you're still going. I'd like to say if you can't hear or see me, log out and log back in, but if you didn't hear or see me say that. So I still got you guys telling me you're good. Are we still good? You guys are flashing on me now. You guys here? You're all froze.
You're clear. I can hear and
All right,
see.
am I clear?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see you clear.
But the screen is frozen. Last time I thought I lost you guys, I think I cussed and I learned that I didn't lose you guys. So I learned that you can see and hear me even when. Okay. All right. So credit score. Once you guys talk to me in the chat, let's have everybody tell me hi in the chat so I know if we're all here or not. If you can hear me, say hi. Hello, hi, 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 hi. Okay, good. Hi, 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 hi. Okay, cool. So it's on my end. If since you guys can still hear me, if we disappear, just log out, log back in, we'll get back together. Okay. So credit score, again, the higher the score, the lower risk you are to the lender. It's not the end all be all. It's not the only number that they're going to look at, but they do consider it because it tells your payment, your repayment history. The other thing that the lender is going to look at is your credit history. The lender uses the underwriter process. The underwriter is the one that gets in the nitty gritty, man. They don't leave a single rock unturned. If there's something about your credit that they need to know, underwriting will find it. They're digging up all of your financial dirt to make sure you can qualify for the loan. So underwriting is going to go back. They're going to look at 2 years of credit, 2 years of debt, 2 years of income. If they have questions or concerns, then they may ask for more information. They may go back more than 2 years. They're also going to want to see your last 7 years of repayment history. You don't have to provide this. They're pulling it. They're doing a very thorough deep dive in your credit history. If you can show reason for not favorable credit history, maybe you had a recent death in your family, a divorce, a medical issue, then underwriting may make exceptions to that. If you have a poor credit score, if you have a history of being late on making your payments, you probably won't be able to qualify for an FHA or a VA. Remember, these are the government-backed loans, and the government's not going to offer the safety net to the lender if the borrower doesn't have a strong credit history. You guys are moving on me again. So are you guys still here? Cool, cool, cool. Y'all want to hear something ironic? Real estate agents aren't always easy to give a mortgage loan to. Why? Because we don't have consistent income. I don't get paid every other week. I get paid when it closes. I did not just say that the real estate agent can't get a loan. I just said that the real estate agent may have to prove more. You may have to show more than 2 years of payment because I'm not getting a paycheck every other week. So independent contractors, isn't that ironic? The very thing I do for a living may make it harder for me to do for myself. But if you think about, you got to be able to show some kind of consistency And if they can't see that in your last 2 years of income, then they just may ask to go back more. Once you and the lender come to terms and you know the terms of your loan and how much you're getting and da 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 da, at some point in the process, the lender's gonna do a rate lock. And a rate lock is locking in your interest rate. And once your interest rate is locked in, that's it for the next term of the loan. Is it a 10-year loan, a 15-year loan, a 30-year loan? Once they lock in your interest rates fluctuate daily. If you want to tomorrow morning or tonight when we get off the call, just go to mortgage, Google mortgage interest rate. You can say today's interest rate. Tomorrow it'll look a little different. Interest rates fluctuate daily. So at some point we've got to lock in your interest rate so you know what that rate will be for the next however long you're going to have that loan. So let's take our lender hat off for just a second. Let's speak broker again for a minute. Kind of what does all this mean for us? Well, as we've been saying, we need this basic understanding of how this works. We need a basic understanding of pre-qualifying our buyers, which is the math that we'll get to tomorrow night. The difference in pre-qualify and pre-approval. Pre-qualify is the first step in the process. And to get pre-qualified, the borrower sends their numbers into the lender. So the borrower tells the lender, this is how much I make a year. This is my debt for the year. This is my outstanding debt. And based off of those numbers, the lender doesn't verify. The lender issues a pre-qualification based off of the numbers that the borrower sent. So if the borrower fabricates their numbers, their pre-qualification is going to be off, isn't it? If they say they make more than what they do, if they don't claim as much debt as what they have. All we're doing with the pre-qualification is based off of the loose numbers that the borrower sends, is giving the lender a general idea of how much they can afford, what their loan approval amount is. Pre-approval is taking that a step further. The borrower sends the lenders the numbers, and now the lender verifies them. Now the lender says, well, we'll see about that. And they verify the income, they verify the debt. So pre-approval is much stronger than a pre-qualification. All lenders are different. Some will offer a pre-approval, some will only offer a pre-qualification. Either one gives us an idea of what the buyer's approved for before we take them out and start showing them property. Guys, we got to get them pre-qualified before we start wasting our time and theirs showing them property that they can't afford. Could you imagine spending days or weeks or months with somebody that says I can buy a house for $300,000 and then come to find out they only get $125,000? All those homes you showed them. So make sure they talk to a lender before you start showing them property, or at the very least, you can pre-qualify them yourself once we get through the math tomorrow night. Are you guys still here? Okay. Some of you are frozen now, some of you are unfrozen. Just make sure I'm standing here not talking to myself. Done it before. I mentioned underwriting earlier, mortgage lender hat back on. Underwriting is just that the process where they go crunch the numbers, they give the final loan approval. Once we go under contract, we send that contract, the buyer's agent sends the contract to the lender for the lender to start their thing. And the lender is going to request information from the borrower. Again, how else can we help in this process? When we go under contract, look your buyer in the eye and say, your lender needs to be your number one priority. If they ask you for a document, get it to them. If they ask you for information, get it to them, because they can't send the package to underwriting to crunch the numbers until they have all the information. Would it surprise you guys if I told you there are buyers out there that have delayed their own closing because they didn't get the information that they needed to the lender in a timely manner? Said something like, I'll get it next week. This week would be even better, right? So we can help in this process by keeping them moving. Guys, I tell my buyers, when we first go under contract, you call the lender back before you call me back. The lender is their priority because they can't send it to underwriting until they've gathered all the information. Once they have everything, they send it to underwriting. It's not uncommon for the loan to come out of underwriting the first time requesting more information. It's not uncommon at all. The underwriter says, looks great. I need this, this, and this. What we get the first round out of underwriting is a pretty good idea. We get a pretty good idea if we're going to get loan approval or not. If it doesn't look good, we're going to get a pretty good idea that you're not going to get loan approval. If it does, the buyer gets the lender whatever else they need, whatever else they're requesting. It goes back through underwriting again, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it comes out the second time with our loan approval. Here's the deal. It's very, very rare for us to have loan approval while we're still in due diligence. Very rare. In all my years, I've only known one buyer to get loan approval while we're still in due diligence. So the best we can hope for, what we can all work really hard for, is while we're in due diligence, for that loan to come out of underwriting the first time, and based on the lender's pretty good idea, the borrower needs to decide, the buyer needs to decide if they want to take that chance and go forward after due diligence, or if they want to terminate. It's kind of risky, isn't it? We usually get loan approval a couple days before settlement. But based on that pretty good idea, the buyer can make the decision about whether or not they should terminate within due diligence or keep going. Remember, if we find out after due diligence they're not going to get loan approval, they have to terminate. Seller will keep the due diligence, and now the seller is going to get the earnest money deposit. I tend to think of underwriting, when you talk to a lender, I tend to think of it as a black hole, because you call the lender and you say, hey, what's going on with our loan? And they say, oh, it's in underwriting. And I'm always like, where is that? Can we go there? Can we visit it? Can we, what is this place you speak of? Some do their own underwriting in-house. Some, subcontract and send it up to underwriters in other parts of the country. But they all have this underwriting process. They're the ones that give us the final approval. Questions on that? So when the lender is determining the pre-approval and the pre-qualification and the math that we're going to look at tomorrow, they look at these qualifying ratios. Now, tomorrow night, we're going to talk about what these numbers mean. So I don't want you to get too excited about them tonight. We'll talk about these numbers tomorrow. And specifically, when we talk about the math, we're going to talk about the 28 and the 36%. So what we're going to focus on in this class is the conventional loan. Tomorrow night is when we're going to talk about what that 28% means. Tomorrow night is when we're going to talk about the I may even get started a little bit on it tonight. but the math we're going to look at is going to look at two ratios. And we're going to learn both ratios look at different things. It's all about debt and income, but there's different debt. And in order for a buyer to qualify, they have to qualify under both the 28 and 36% if they're going for a conventional loan. VA only uses one ratio, a little bit different. Again, more on this tomorrow night. If we don't start it tonight, when we pick up our calculators. So earlier, when we started Unit 15, I introduced you guys to TRID. And we said TRID was the TILA RESPA integrated disclosure. So TILA, RESPA, integrated disclosure. So let's talk now specifically about TILA. TILA tells the consumer, it informs the consumer about the cost to obtain the loan. TILA is also known as Regulation Z. Yes, you need to know that TILA is also known as Regulation Z. I would write TILA equals Regulation Z. TILA applies when we're purchasing a home. This is for our residential mortgages. If you're getting a commercial loan, TILA is not going to apply. If you're a cash buyer, TRID is not going to apply. TRID is a lender law. So in order for TRID, thus TILA, to be around, we got to have a lender involved. So many times I've had agents in my office come back from closing. They're like foaming at the mouth. They're red in the face. That little veins popping. And I'm like, yo, what's up? And they're like, the attorney did this and that and everything else, and TILA, and who do I call, and what's the number to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau? And I'm like, whoa. Was it a cash buyer? Yeah. When it's a cash buyer, the rule is there are no rules. The rules only come into place when we have a lender involved. The rules are TRID, specifically what we're looking at now is TILA. TILA is administered, there's our Consumer Financial Protection Bureau again. TILA helps the consumer calculate the cost to get the loan. All those charges that equate the whole loan. And one thing that TILA gets involved in is how we advertise loans, how we advertise these loan terms. You guys are frozen again. Am I still here? Well, I don't know. I can't see you. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, yes, good. Thank you. As long as I'm still here, that's the important thing, right? So one thing that TILA does to protect the consumers is they get involved with how the lender can advertise their product, how the lender can advertise their loan. And TILA requires that the lenders fully disclose these chief disclosures. There's 4 chief disclosures that have to appear on the loan estimate. They got to be provided to the consumer. So when a lender is advertising the loan, we're going to discuss something in just a minute called a trigger term. And if a trigger term is hit, the lender has to provide all the information about the loan. Mortgage loans are not a one-size-fits-all. Mortgage loans are different from consumer to consumer based on your credit history, your credit score. If we really wanted to have fun, we could all call the same lender tomorrow and try to get a loan for the exact same property. And I promise we would all walk away with different terms, because we all have a different credit score. We all have a different credit history. And what TILA says is if you're going to advertise the specifics of the loan, then you need to make this a one size fits all. Everybody gets these loan terms. So if you hit, again, we're talking about a trigger term next. If you hit a trigger term, you got to provide the APR. APR is the annual percentage rate. It is like all of the financing charges of the loan, not just the interest rate. It's all of the charges. The lender needs to disclose the financing charges, the total number and the amounts of payments and the total amount financed. Again, if you're advertising specific numbers, if the lender is advertising specific numbers, the presumption is that everybody qualifies under this. So when we talk about these specific numbers, what we're referring to are these trigger terms. TILA has regulations on trigger terms. Trigger terms are specific numbers about the loan, and we're going to look at some examples in just a second. Whenever you see an advertisement for a loan or a property for sale, all parties involved need to stay away from specific numbers. And please note that says about the loan. If I'm advertising the purchase price, is that a number about the loan? House for sale for $100,000. Is that about the loan? No, I haven't hit a trigger term. If I'm advertising a house for sale and I say HOA dues are $50 per month, are HOA dues about the loan? No, it's about the HOA. So just because you see a number in an ad, don't get excited. It's got to be a specific number about the loan. Again, we'll look at some examples in a second. And what TILA says is that any of these trigger terms are hit, then all financing terms about the loan has to be disclosed. If the lender is going to be bold enough to state a number about the loan, they got to put it all out there. Yeah. Common. So when we talk about trigger terms, specific numbers about the loan, if the lender advertises an actual amount of the down payment, if they advertise an actual amount of any payment, if they advertise a specific number of payments, period of repayments, or the dollar amount of finance charge. These are examples of trigger terms. Again, looking at examples in just a second. But these are examples of trigger terms that if the lender specifically mentions any of these numbers, TILA says they have to advertise all of the terms of the loan. Again, the presumption is it's a one size fits all. The amount that you have available to put down may be a lot more than what I have available to put down. The amount that you're going to get, number of payments, maybe is going to be a lot different. Can we see the difference? If we look at some examples, I feel like we're still writing. Bless y'all's heart. Y'all's hands hurt. PowerPoints are on the online learning system, you guys. Please remember that. So specific numbers about the loan. Can you guys see the difference in $600 monthly payment versus low monthly payment? Isn't $600 a specific number? The lender can say low monthly payment, they've not hit a trigger term. But if they say $600 monthly payment, now they've set a specific number. Now they've hit a trigger term. Now they have to advertise or disclose all the terms of the loan. Do we see the difference between zero down versus low down payment? The zero is the specific number versus low down payment. Low could mean zero, it could mean $5, it could mean 100, right? Low is not specific, and that's what we're saying with the trigger terms. Again, don't let your test fool you. It's going to give you the purchase price. It's going to give you the HOA dues. It's going to tell you how much taxes are this year. Make sure when you see a number, before you get excited and go, trigger term, make sure you ask yourself, is that number about the loan? So as long as you're not hitting a specific number. So again, make sure it is about the loan. The list price, HOA dues, taxes, what else are not about the loan. So we've hit this trigger term. The lender has to disclose how much is the loan, the actual amount, frequency number, and down payments, actual interest rate. Once a trigger term is hit, all the specifics about the loan have to be disclosed. Remember, TRID and TILA, everything post housing market crash is about protecting the consumer. And one of the best ways we can protect the consumer is to educate them about the 30-year loan, provide them with the details, the information about the 30-year loan that they're getting ready to get or trying to get. Okay. So, gee, Julie, what's the big deal? So what? Penalties for violating TILA, penalties for these advertising. We're looking at fines of $10,000 per day per violation. Possible prison time. And how do you think the North Carolina Real Estate Commission is going to feel about this? You think there's disciplinary action on your license involved as well? You better believe it. So why in the world are we having this conversation? If this is a lender law, and we're clearly in real estate school, remember, we are in real estate school. If this is a lender law, why do we care about how the lenders advertise? Imagine, if you will, a scenario. For example, we work closely with our lenders. We form relationships, we team up, we work together on various things. So let's say you get a really nice new listing and you decide you want to do a broker. Let's do a broker wine and cheese Thursday afternoon. So you want to invite all the brokers in your community to your listing for a wine and cheese charcuterie board from 3 to 5 on Thursday. Gets people in to look at your listing so they have any possible buyers. Plus, it's a great opportunity to network. So you're going to do this broker open. And you call your lender buddy and you say, hey, I'm doing a broker open on Thursday. You want to go in on it with me? Your lender buddy's probably going to say yes. Because what a great opportunity for your lender buddy to meet new agents, right? What a great opportunity for them to get in front of agents to refer their buyers to. And then your lender buddy says, let me handle the advertising. Do you think it's wise $10,000 per day, prison time, and disciplinary action from the Real Estate Commission to let your lender buddy do the advertising for the broker open before you review the flyer, because your name's on it now. Your picture, your phone number, your email address. You think you want to review that thing, that flyer, before your lender buddy puts it out? Because once your name is on it, you are part of that advertising. You guys with me? We need to be aware. We're helping our buyers. Even just our general advertising. Make sure when you're advertising, you may have a preferred lender. You may say, contact my preferred lender. You can't get into specifics about the loan. Questions on that? Other lender laws, other than TRID, let's see RESPA in 21, but other lender laws, there's something called the Federal Equal Credit Opportunity Act. This prevents discrimination against the lenders protected classes. The lenders protected classes are race, color, religion, national origin, sex, marital status, age, or dependency on public assistance. The lenders protected classes are different than brokers protected classes. We're going to talk about brokers protected classes in our fair housing unit. When we say age is a protected class for the lenders, that's assuming the applicant is at least 18. A minor shouldn't get a home loan. But what that's protecting, if a 90-year-old walks into a bank and applies for a 30-year loan, they cannot be denied because of their age. Bottom line, it should come down to debt versus income for each applicant. If the applicant can't get loan approval, the Federal Equal Credit Opportunity Act requires the lender to inform the applicant in writing why that loan was denied. They have 30 days to provide that. And again, the reason why better not be because of one of the protected classes. It better be because their debt to income ratio didn't work out. Another thing from the lender world is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. This is what gives us the right to check our credit report once a year. We can pull a credit report from the 3 sources. They're in your book, page 410, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So you can go pull a credit report, you get one free a year. If you haven't checked it in a while, it can't hurt. There may be things on your credit report that you're not aware of. Don't let them pop up when you're trying to buy a home. If you find something on there that you disagree with, you can dispute it. Credit report, go back last 7 years of your credit history, except bankruptcies, they go back a little bit further. Somebody, yep. I can't think of the Credit Karma. Is that the big one? Credit Karma, you see the commercials for all the time. Bless your heart. Swear. That's horrible. I'm so sorry to say that. But yeah, keeping an eye on your credit. Unfortunately, guys, there are people out there trying to steal your identity, steal your credit. Keeping your eye on your credit reports may help make you aware to alerts. Another thing for lenders, about lenders, is loan fraud. Yeah, loan fraud is bad. If you commit loan fraud, you're lying on your loan application. You're giving false information. That's not a typo. That number of zeros is correct. See what I mean? It's bad. So if any applicants, again, lie on their application, produce false numbers, they may be susceptible to loan fraud. And then the last thing about lenders, there's something called the North Carolina Predatory Lending Act. Again, this is all about consumer protection. That's what a lot of our lender laws, regulations are about today, is protecting the consumer. Guys, real estate's a market. We're going to have highs and lows. But the hope with all of these efforts and this energy that we have into place now is that our lows aren't so low as the housing market crash. So there's restrictions on loans, all loans. The fees that the lenders can charge are covered under the Predatory Lending Act. They prevent the lender from, lying or being deceptive. And a big part of our lending practices now is helping to educate the consumer. Just a very brief mention of RESPA. This is the R in TRID. RESPA is the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. This tells the consumer the cost to get the loan, settlement charges. More on this in 21. That's all we're going to say about RESPA for right now. Questions? So this gets us into the math. So we'll be able to pick our calculator up, guys. Unit 15 math does not tend to be your favorite math. So please come with an open mind tomorrow, come with a calculator. If you can look ahead, please do. Not all of Unit 15 math is, in the book. We will get through it, I promise. I don't know if you need a shot of Red Bull or something before class. That would be, as long as it's a non-alcoholic shot of something, that could help you get through it. But before we go tonight, I do want to just introduce you guys to pages 412 and 413 of your book. And part of the math that we're going to do tomorrow is dealing with this mortgage factor chart. This is the chart that helps the lender determine what your monthly payment is. So remember, Unit 14, we learned how to amortize the loan. We were given the monthly payment. We were given the monthly debt service. This is the chart that's going to help us, and we'll see the formula. Actually, let's look at it tonight. We'll start here tomorrow, so don't worry about writing it down tonight if you don't want to. But what the mortgage factor chart does is it helps us determine the monthly debt service. It looks at the loan amount. It looks at something called the rate factor. Rate factor and mortgage factor are the same thing. They're used interchangeably. The rate, the left-hand column where it says rate, that's referring to the interest rate. And then all the other columns are the term of the loan. Is it a 10-year loan, 15, 20, 25, or 30? And the way that the lender determines the rate factor is they have the proposed interest rate and the term of the loan. And when you take your finger and follow it down and then follow it over. So for example, do we have time? Yeah, for example, if it's a 5% interest rate and it's a 30-year loan, take your finger and follow it down to 5 and then go over to 30-year loan. So your rate factor would be 5.37. Everybody see that? 5% interest rate, 30-year loan, your rate factor for the formula would be 5.37. You don't have to memorize this chart. Is that good news? They will either provide you with the rate factor, they will tell you the 5.37, or I have heard at PSI Testing Center, I have had students tell me that the mortgage rate factor chart is blown up as a big poster on the wall. So if they don't give you that 5.37, you need to know how to find it. And that's what we just did. We found the 5% in the 30-year term. So where we're going to start tomorrow is with this formula, finding that monthly principal and interest. And then we're going to do our math on qualifying a buyer. It was in your book. They took it out of your book. I don't know why, but don't worry. You got me. I got plenty of practice for you guys. So we'll go through that tomorrow. Just please come with an open mind and some patience tomorrow. I promise you we will get through it. Everybody good? All right. Y'all have a great night. We'll do some fun math tomorrow. Let's turn this around a little bit, right? We'll do some fun math tomorrow. And then we'll get started on unit 21 maybe. Yeah, we'll get started on unit 21 tomorrow. So we just keep going, don't we? All right. Good night.